Jonathan Mark. Is Dianetics, not OT levels, I refer only to Hubbard's 1950 book, any crazier than Freud or Reich? Wouldn't critical thinking invalidate the writings of the founders of psychiatry too? Yes and no. I mean, I think at this point, I'm not an expert on Freud. I wouldn't say I'm a dabbler in Freud, but I think I have a little more familiarity with it than that. But I have not read any of Freud's works or extensive summaries or layouts of what Freud specifically talked about. So I have a maybe slightly above average understanding of his work, but not really much more than that. So I can't really say for sure that everything that Freud wrote is just flat out wrong. But I will say this. Freud was somebody who was a pioneer in a field that was fresh and new at the time that he was doing his research and his writings. Freud did real research. Now we can rag on Freud's methods and his research methods, and we can rag on his conclusions, but at least he was making an honest effort, is my point. And I think intentions matter, and I think context matters. And given his time period, I mean, we're talking about the 1800s, early 1900s, so this was pioneer work that he was doing. Whether he, got it right or wrong, at least he was moving the ball down the road and getting, the idea that there could be a psychotherapy developed that would help people that was not straitjackets and ice picks in the brain and locking people up and torturing them, basically, which was what was going on in mental homes and in institutions at that time. So here was somebody who at least was moving the ball forward in a fairly constructive fashion. I can't really talk about Reich at all. I don't know much of anything about that. Now, fast forward to L. Ron Hubbard in 1950, and here you have a guy who is using hypnotism in order to con people into thinking that they're feeling better. And that is what Dianetics, at its heart and soul, really is. Before the book was written and released, Hubbard was practicing hypnotism on these people. He changed the technique when he wrote Dianetics, the Modern Science of Mental Health, and then it still had obvious hypnosis roots with the counting and the fluttering of the eyelids and the trance state a person is supposed to enter. But it wasn't straight up hypnotism. It was altered. It was modified hypnotism, right? So it was hypnotism for the, for the common person who didn't realize he was doing hypnotism, right? It was much more hidden. So Hubbard was all about getting people to think something positive had happened to them, or, sort of. And maybe, just to give him a little bit of benefit of the doubt, maybe he thought that was, if they thought they were cured, then they were cured, right? Maybe he thought that one, 6 of one was half a dozen of another, right? But I don't think so. I think he knew that there was I think he was well aware that there was a con going on there. So Dianetics, just ripped off stuff from Freud's work, from psychoanalysis, and mixed it all up with this hypnotism stuff and put a bunch of scientific sounding words in the middle of it and called it a science. Well, it wasn't. It's total pseudoscience. It's by practically the definition of pseudoscience is what Dianetics is. So I think it breaks down much more readily and much more rapidly to critical thinking than, old school psychoanalysis. As I understand it, in the world of psychology and psychiatry, that old school psychoanalysis has been, it has evolved into other things. People don't go back and do old school Freudian psychoanalysis anymore, and those concepts have changed and evolved, as they should have because that's how science works. Is you go to this point, somebody else comes along and they take it to this point, somebody else comes along, they move the ball down the road. None of that's happening with Dianetics, right? So sure, you can go back to Freud and you can apply some critical thinking and break it all down, but what would be the use? Because it's not even being used anymore. It's more of a historical sort of thing, as I understand it. Okay, so I think there's a difference there that can be appreciated, and that's that's what I have to say about it.